Hi, I'm Gerald Lynch from TechRadar.
And I'm Henry St Ledger, also from TechRadar.
And we're here to talk about the video games of the decade. So, how have we done this, Henry?
What we've done is we've reached across the entire TechRadar team and let everyone vote on their favourite games of the decade and aggregated that data to get a representative list.
And we have to note that the choices on this list might not necessarily reflect the personal choices of me and Henry. So we'll go through what the team have selected, and then we might talk around the edges about what we've been into.
I think we definitely disagree with some of them.
We definitely disagree with them. I think everything on the list is worthy, but but where's Diablo 3? We'll get to that in a bit. Should we start with honourable mention?
Honourable mention.
Let's start with honourable mention.
Honourable mention, No Man's Sky. Did not quite get enough votes to get in the top 10 list, but just about squeezed into the corners as I think the game that offered a lot of people got mad about, but then really sort of turned it around and gave its fan base what it wanted over a substantial period of time.
Turnaround of the decade, redemption of the decade. So you've got a game here where it's doing something really incredible in terms of generating a whole universe on the fly, using like an algorithmic system, sort of shipped in not the state that people were expecting though, right?
A game that was victim of its own hype in a way. There are a lot of features being chatted about that didn't make it into the launch software. So a lot of people ended up buying a game like, this isn't quite what I wanted yet.
Yeah. I think the whole way it was pitched at first was the idea of maybe being able to, meet other players on other planets and stuff like that, and there being this massive amount of variety in the way that the planets looked. And what it really shipped as was this incredibly impressive sort of tech showcase in terms of being able to fly from one planet to another and it being procedurally generated, but there wasn't much game there. Now the developers at Hello Games,
Hello Games,
have done a really great job of, despite sort of the huge crazy wave of internet criticism they received, really like battening down the hatches and going, right, we're going to commit to this, putting out an update every 3-6 months, something like that, and substantial updates. So you'd get the one that gave you sort of underwater exploration, you'd get the one that introduced vehicles. The most recent one has really truly turned the game into like a massively multiplayer title and added virtual reality options as well. So I think, totally deserves mention, not just for its ambition, but for perhaps one of the key things of this decade was the way a game can ship and change quite dramatically over the course of its lifetime, and in this case, for the better.
Yeah, so, I think it offers quite a good model to other games as a service that, again, launch with X amount of game at start, and then you have several years to try and keep your fan base and grow it.
And to deliver all of that at no additional cost to the game as well. I think they deserve a hearty, honourable round of applause. So, on to our first true game of the decade then.
Well, it's a sort of a shared slot, isn't it, between Red Dead 1 and Red Dead 2.
They got an equal number of votes, so to cut one out didn't seem quite fair.
Yeah.
So Red Dead 1 and Red Dead 2. What's your favourite, Henry?
Haven't played them.
What?
I know.
What?
I get a lot of hate in the office for this.
Okay, on me then.
On you, I think this is your one.
Ask me, what do you want to know? What do you want to know?
Just why is Red Dead 1 and 2, why is the love equal between them?
Well, here's where the list starts getting a little bit kind of picky, because I voted for number 1 and not number 2. I've played and finished both of them. I think they're both superb games. I think Red Dead 1 is just more fun. I think it tells a tighter story. So for those who don't know the series, it's a cowboy adventure set in the dying days of the Wild West. The first game is actually set before Red Dead 2. Red Dead 2 acts as a prequel. What Rockstar, who are also the developers of the Grand Theft Auto series, are really good at is creating these really dense worlds. We think of the Grand Theft Auto games, and to the extent that Red Dead Redemption 1 has these kind of satirical sort of epics, right? You can go anywhere, you can do anything you want within the confines of the fiction. So, whether that's riding a horse, robbing a bank, holding up a train, the whole sort of cliche cowboy experience is crammed into the Red Dead games. What Red Dead 2 really tries to do though is now that sense of like a living, breathing world. So you've got this amazingly detailed landscape full of wild deer and running streams and great vistas to look out upon. What I think it didn't quite get right compared to it reminded me kind of like the Star Wars prequels in its storytelling. In not that, you know, I mean, there's no Jar Jar running around, right?
Exactly.
But you know how this story's going to end because you've already seen how Red Dead 1 begins. And I think it kind of takes some of that gut punch away from it. What it does do really well though is give you this kind of ensemble cast of cowboys and outlaws to kind of be a part of and run through this really so incredibly well realized landscape, and kind of set you loose in that. It's hugely ambitious, Red Dead 2, but I think it gets kind of maybe caught up a little bit too much in its pursuit of realism, whereas Red Dead 1 is a little bit more yeehaw, go and have fun with it. But it's still good.
It's still good.
It's in the list.
It is certainly a gorgeous world. It is one of those games I would happily watch my flatmate play, despite not having actually picked up the controller.
Likewise, like my girlfriend's not a gamer, but she appreciated just the sheer beauty of how it looked. On to number 9.
Cool.
Number 8.
Number 8 even. We're speeding along. Number 8, Uncharted 4, Thief's End from Naughty Dog.
How do you feel about this one?
Again, not one of
Not one of yours. Come at me.
Higher up the list. We'll get there. I mean, I've got so much love for Naughty Dog. I think Crash Bandicoot just gives me my Naughty Dog fix. I just want more of that.
So I have played all of the Uncharted games and finished all of the Uncharted games, and again, like Thief's End is an incredible game. Like it looks fantastic. It really nails that sort of pulp Indiana Jones style adventure. Naughty Dog really step it up a gear as well in terms of how it looks. I don't think there's any games developer out there who nails telling a story as well as Naughty Dog. I think what they've, you know, we're talking about Red Dead Redemption earlier and its kind of cast, etc. But that's spread out over like a potentially 100-hour game. Uncharted 2, I think maybe 15-20 hours long. Yeah. It's tight.
It's a story you can actually
finish.
Right?
Yeah, it's a narrative. There's a narrative, there's a first act, a final act, you know, and it all comes through and there's momentum to it. They're really great at their motion capture and their facial sort of facial capture, that's a thing. And like their voiceover work is superb. You really believe them and you really root for them. What I would say is it's still not as good as the series high point, which was Uncharted 2, which came out just the wrong side of this decade list, which I think I would have been able to 100% wholeheartedly recommend.
I think there are probably a lot of 2009 titles.
Yeah,
quite
just,
sad not
just
to
missed
include.
it. Yeah, right. But it's another great game. It really nailed that. The gunplay has got tighter and tighter across all the Uncharted games. The introduction of the sort of the hook, sort of swingy rope thing, gives you a lot more like verticality and momentum to the levels. You're not just stuck as a cover shooter anymore. You can be a little bit more tactical about how you position yourself. Great game player.
We've got a tie for the next few ones.
Whoa,
really.
okay, so this represents slots 5 through 7.
5 through 7. First one, Fortnite. It being impossible to talk about gaming in this decade without talking about Fortnite.
Yeah.
One of the most played games in the world, a free-to-play game at that. Everyone from Drake to your 9-year-old nephew playing it.
I've been really... I've got a pet hate for Fortnite. not only because I'm not good at it, but because
we're all terrible at it.
Every time I buy like my nephews a present for their birthday, say like a new video game, I think they spend about 5 minutes on it before they just want to go back and play Fortnite. It's the black hole of gaming for me, not just because of its black hole ending to that
endless content for no money.
Endless content
it's
for
such
no
a
money,
thing.
and yet it makes loads of money because of the way it sells its premium sort of skins and stuff.
And a game that does, you know, obviously we should be talking about the gameplay probably, but for a game that does microtransactions in a way that people don't feel like they're being ripped off the fact that you can happily not pay a penny and still really enjoy yourself.
Yeah,
is like a big statement in a decade full of terrible microtransactions.
And I would say it's one of the games that has legitimized esports on that sort of casual mainstream sense. There've been like BBC stories about the kid who wins $1 million playing Fortnite. But it's also been a game that's caused a lot of controversy in terms of parenting and that sort of the fear of the influence of video games again. Now, Fortnite, to give it its due, is a kind of cartoony looking game. It isn't pushing like really hyper realistic violence down kids' throats, even if it is, still a shooter. But it is so addictive. It's for those who enjoy it, which is everyone other than me, it seems. It caused real scaremongering, real tabloid sort of fear about what influences have over children. It's on the list.
That's Fortnite. Next, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, a game that is now on every console platform you can think of and still selling, despite being a however old years game.
The Witcher 3, I think, probably is, I'd argue, the most influential game on this list. I think every single player, story-driven, and definitely role-playing game that has followed it has lifted whole chunks out of The Witcher 3. I mean, Red Dead Redemption 2 at least, obviously hasn't taken huge amounts of influence from The Witcher 3. Even Nintendo, when you start talking about the more recent Zelda games, has really tapped that up.
I think what most people say to me is it's not only a hugely influential game, but one that people will happily go back and buy on another platform, having played it on PC when it came out. They're all playing it on the Switch now, or whatever. And I do think it's had a big role to play, alongside a lot of other franchises like Skyrim and Game of Thrones, to sort of normalising the fantasy genre and people seeing the sort of the weight and the seriousness of it.
So I think for me, the thing that's really special about The Witcher, or Witcher 3, is its commitment to storytelling across the board. So it's quite a good action game. Like, its swordplay is pretty decent. Its world, again, looks phenomenal. But what it really does do better than any other game on this list, even if it's not my favourite game on this, but where I really appreciate, even over like my RPG pick of the decade, which would be Skyrim, which we'll talk about later, is its commitment to storytelling across all of its missions. The way that you can run through a side mission that you could completely ignore, and it has heart to all of its voice acting. It will go to the place you're not expecting. It doesn't rely on the usual fantasy cliches. I think in like, as you mentioned rightly, like Game of Thrones earlier, in the same way that early on Game of Thrones, people were like constantly surprised about what it was going to do. I think The Witcher 3 was really good at constantly playing with your expectations of the genre and what you can expect from an RPG. It's adult, it's violent in a accessible way. It's deep with its lore. It's vast in its scope and in the land that it lets you explore. Full of secrets. Every corner feels handcrafted, and I think it's a real testament, and it's why everyone's so excited about Cyberpunk 2077, which will be its sci-fi themed spiritual successor next year.
Cool. Next one, Pokemon Go.
Pokemon Go. I'll hand this one over to you then, Henry.
Yeah, gladly. Love me my Pokemons. Part of me is really amazed that it's still got such a dedicated following. I think a lot of us were worried it was going to be a sort of flash in the pan mobile game. But again, the sort of continual updates, the constant addition of new Pokemon, and just giving people their Pokemon fix in between, the several year waits between flagship games, just giving us a way to access that world, I think was really magical for a lot of people.
Likewise, like No Man's Sky, it's it's been constantly tinkered with as well since it's came out, right?
Yeah, you've got changes to raids, gym battles, alongside all of the new creatures as well, which I think once you've started collecting, you don't stop. If they're like, we've got another 100 Pokemon for you to collect, you're like, okay, well I'm on it for the next few weeks again.
I remember the summer it came out, it being like genuinely like heartwarming, seeing people out playing it. Like it was one of those, we talk about games being a phenomenon, right? Like it's something like Fortnite, everyone's playing it at the same time. But everyone's playing Fortnite in their bedroom. Sure, Fortnite's now quite a big mobile game as well, but for the most part it's a console PC.
You get like hunting parties where people are going out en masse, or you find out there's a shiny Vaporeon in Times Square and it floods.
Yeah, and like just seeing some of like my non-gamer friends walking around the park and throwing a Pokeball at a Gengar or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like it was just this fun communal experience and sort of not just a game, but like an activity, right? It was something that you took part in. You had to go and access it. Although the game is on your phone in your pocket, the game is really outside your window. Yeah. And I think that was a really nice idea. And then it's played an influence on the Pokemon games that have followed it. So Pokemon. Let's go. The Eevee.
The way it's copied the Pokeball mechanic.
Yeah.
It's been a really nice way of we're not just making a mobile game for people who aren't that bothered to play. We're making this game and we're taking things you're used to playing with and the kind of mechanics you're growing fond of, and we're making sure they stay in other games.
And we're TechRadar's, so we should talk about augmented reality as well. One of the games that really put into perspective what that sort of mass appeal. What the mass appeal of augmented reality can be, that idea of manipulating the real world through that window that is your phone. Having that sort of to scale Pokemon sat on your garden bench as a cool little, get my red trainer hat on, pull it backwards, Ash catch 'em all, like it was a good fun. So, onwards.
Onwards in the list, another tie for places 3 and 4. Again, very close to my heart, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
And another open world game, GTA 5.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. So 2 games that essentially offer that same open world experience, but take it in hugely different directions.
Yeah.
So should we start with Breath of the Wild? Cool.
I think this is a game we've both sunk a lot of time into.
So I finished it on Old Man Gerald on the Wii U. And like one of the 12 people in the world who owned a Wii U.
Yeah.
And actually probably all 12 people owned Breath of the Wild on it as well.
Yeah. It was a game I put off playing for a while because I really wanted to sink my time properly into it. I didn't want to dip it. I mean, that's part of the joy of it. It's a game you can explore a mountain for 30 minutes and then get back to your job. But I was in bed with the flu for a couple of weeks and just sunk 100 hours into it, and it was one of the happiest periods of my life.
Despite the flu.
Despite the flu, who cares? Who cares about the flu when I've got Zelda? Yeah, just a game that was so willing to let you feel awe the moment you climb your first mountain, and being able to see Hyrule Castle and a volcano and sort of icy blizzards in the distance. You're like, no, I can see the entire world here. I'm not being buried between corridors. I don't feel like I'm being tricked into seeing things that aren't there. That is a thing in the distance. I can ignore every quest. I can just walk and I will get there. And that's a feeling I haven't had in a lot of games.
So there are 2 things about Breath of the Wild that I think really elevate it for me. So first off, beyond that first hour where it's kind of just about showing you the ropes, until that point where you get the glider, after you get the glider, which probably, depending on how you play, maybe an hour or 2 into the game, you can do whatever you want. There are no map markers, there's no sort of pointed out collectibles or any natural or any artificial barrier to where you can go.
Yeah, you can go to the boss fight straight away if you want.
Just go and get yourself absolutely slaughtered. It truly has that sense of freedom and exploration. It doesn't, as you say, it doesn't channel you down a corridor to hit anything in any particular order. You make your own mistakes because of that, but also any sort of sense of achievement and exploration. If you hit a tough bit and you really plug away at it, you can go for it if you want and make it. And I think it makes that exploration all the more valuable. It takes a few things from like the Ubisoft open world, you know, the thing of climbing a tower and then opening up a little more map or whatever. But again, it's something that's kind of avoidable. And whereas, and I mean, there've been some great Assassin's Creed games in the last decade, Odyssey being a favourite of many people. I really enjoyed Black Flag, the pirate one. The Ubisoft open world model has this sort of intention of saying, here's a thing for you to do here, here's a thing for you to do here, here's this collectible, and that was long to-do list that you're never going to get through. Breath of the Wild is
a lot more holistic.
Yeah,
really.
It's
You're
like
just like sort of go here if you want.
It's like, here is the world, make of it what you will. So my second thing I really like about that is after you've got that, here is the world, make of it what you will, is that every single action in the game is fun and like gamified, you know? So to take two examples, you mentioned like climbing a mountain. You've got that stamina bar, right? Which you can increase over the course of your game. So actually getting from like point A in that mountain to the tip becomes like a real exercise in like, right, okay, how am I going to figure out how to use my stamina to get from here up to here? And some kind of lesser developers than Nintendo, that would feel like a chore. Like, okay, well, I've got to find some route and I've not got enough stamina. But the way they make you, you know, you can kind of do that little dash to make a last minute jump from one more ledge and stuff like that. And then down to like the cooking recipes, like you pick up different ingredients. And it's not just like when you're doing it in a game like Skyrim, it's like, okay, so here's some made up sort of leaf and a bit of bread, and you know, oh, now I've got a potion or whatever.
You're making just actual meals.
Yeah, in Zelda,
what kind of stir fry can I do?
I've got an egg and I've got some chicken and I've got some rice. Oh, I've made chicken, egg fried rice. You know, it's like, and it's kind of in the little, like, you know, you get a little thing, he makes it like makes little sound effects. It's like, I've made some great food. And you can take those two examples and apply that to every single element of the game. Like whether it's the sword fighting, the way that you have your progression in terms of like the skills of your character are tied to beating the challenge shrines. It doesn't hold your hand, it never cheats you, and it always makes every action fun.
Yeah, it never quite feels like a grind. And in an open world game, in a genre that is often, even in excellent open world games, quite famous for just giving you things to do to fill your time because they just don't really want you to run out of stuff. Yeah, it's a game where nothing, like lots of it don't feel necessary, but it always feels worthwhile when you've done it.
Yeah, lots of open world games are fun to explore and you want to go back to see the sights again. Breath of the Wild is the only one I can think of that I wasn't exhausted by at the end.
Yeah.
I would go back now and still enjoy it.
It's refreshing, if anything.
I mean, it would be a lot higher on my list.
Yeah.
So let's put it that way.
I think we both agree there.
But you can't also deny its teammate in slot 4, 3-4, Grand Theft Auto 5. What a game.
What a game. What a series. Again, quite a different personality, I think, to Zelda.
Yeah, right? So like if you have that sort of wholesome adventure from Breath of the Wild in its open world, and then you go to Grand Theft Auto 5, which is, you know, it's like, what's the dark, sleazy heart of the open world, and then you get Grand Theft Auto 5. Again, Rockstar really nailing that idea of like a gang of criminal outlaw types, obviously through a filter of the modern day. But whereas like Red Dead Redemption 2 plays it very sort of straight and gives you this old school take on a historical epic, GTA 5 is anarchic and satirical and again in much of the same way that Breath of the Wild makes every action fun. Well, I'm not going to say that Grand Theft Auto 5's every action is fun, it offers you so many fun actions that you can kind of gloss over the things that don't work quite as well. They nail the driving,
just driving with the radio on. Just those are my fondest memories of playing any of the games of the franchise, is just being in the car with the radio on, not even running people over, shooting things. I'm just driving the car in the world.
And when you think of like Breath of the Wild as like a really wonderful sort of fantasy environment to explore, I'm gonna, put myself on the line and say, actually creating a forced world where you can, oh look, here's our ice kingdom and here's our water kingdom, is kind of like a bit rote. Now that's not to say that mimicking the real world isn't, but what's really difficult is making a place that, some of your gamers will probably recognize. I mean, GTA 5 is set in Los Santos, which is a facsimile of Los Angeles. It feels natural, that progression from like a mountainous region to like the absolute sort of Skid Row elements of LA through to like the desert and stuff like that. It's like, how did they make this feel like a real living place? And then, you've got a first for the series, which allows you to play as like 3 separate protagonists.
I think I did so much for the scale of it, not just making the world bigger, but letting you see it from different angles.
Yeah. And they're really interesting perspectives as well, right? You've got the kind of more affluent former criminal, you've got the upstart kid who wants to make a name for himself, and then you've just got the psycho, who like gives you like a completely different way of playing. And just so many like great, I think even more so than Red Dead 2, GTA 5 nails that sense of like a Hollywood set piece. So you've got like the mission when you go out to like the drug camp in like in the desert somewhere, and you set fire to everything. And then there's the one where you're hanging off the back of the ladder on like it's like a fire truck maybe, I can't remember, or maybe one of those cherry picker tree things, and you're hanging off going down the freeway. And then obviously the massive heist missions at the end, and then how it breathes into that sense of like 3 different perspectives, and let you jump to help one character when that one's in trouble, and jump back to that one when he's helped, and then you've just got all the crazy stuff that Grand Theft Auto lets you do, like getting the army on you, and and gambling, and it's just a great game, perfectly realised well. I think it's the one where, at least in terms of ambition and vision for Rockstar, whether to have really aligned and been as close to perfect as they've managed.
I'm just waiting for GTA London.
Bring it back, GTA London. When's it going to happen? I mean, where do you think they're going to go next?
I think there've been some rumours around Florida.
Right. Okay.
Possibly.
Around Disneyland.
Yeah. I mean, now that you say that, that's very GTA. Can you burn down Disneyland in a day? That's a GTA mission.
Oh god. I'd like to see them go back to like the idea around like Chinatown Wars. Or
what
GTA
an
London.
Excellent game Chinatown was.
Often forgotten, but when you think back to like the top-down roots of Grand Theft Auto.
I don't know how many DS players really wanted that game.
No, probably not. But you can get it on many things now. You can get it on Android. I think you can get it on. Can you get it on PC? I'm not sure. No, I don't think you can.
The touch controls, like putting guns together.
Yeah.
And
So I'd like to see, and that the whole sort of thing of like that neon world of like somewhere like Chinatown, or maybe take it to some other Eastern country would be quite interesting. I think maybe it's done with.
Done with the big US city.
The American dream. I think it really nails that sort of the foibles of that in GTA 5. So it'd be interesting to see them take it somewhere else. Yeah.
Onwards, number 2, Skyrim. This is one I'm absolutely handing over to you.
So have you not sunk any time in Skyrim?
I have. I've entered the world, but I feel like this is the game you talk about daily. So
I've played more of Skyrim than I think any other game other than the greatest game of all time, which is Super Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo. No comebacks. Don't at me.
At him.
Skyrim, I think I've played more than any other game ever. And I'd imagine quite a lot of people watching this will probably feel the same. It's just the most freeing, big experience in gaming ever, I would say. It doesn't do everything perfect. I think a seasoned player can overpower themselves very quickly and then run through bosses like they're nothing. But more so than, to me at least, more so than Breath of the Wild or Red Dead or any of these other open world games we're talking about, that sense of like, I can see everything over there, I'm gonna go and check it out. Skyrim nails it. And you've got to think Skyrim actually is by far is it the oldest game on this list? It's got to be close. It's coming up to definitely being one of the older games on this list. And its influence is just immense, right? I mean, the amount of things that have become sort of like little cultural memes out of the back of Skyrim. Like, I took an arrow to the knee, like these things like you can't escape on the internet now.
I've seen plays in London where they have characters like playing Skyrim in the background just for like set dressing. It's permeated everything.
And I think it really allows you to go out, be the character that you want to be, learn the skills you want to do, and take on sort of the world in the way that you want to take it on.
And in the way that lets you grow your skills just through doing that action.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is just a very, I don't have to think about maxing out this weapon. I'm using a weapon and I just get better at using it.
Yeah.
That's how practice works.
Yeah, exactly, right. And I think you can't talk about Skyrim without talking about mods as well. So like you've got this huge modding community. So like Bethesda, they sometimes, the developers at Bethesda, they sometimes get some stick for creating games that maybe feel a little bit janky when they're first created. There's a little bit of the odd bug here and that. An absolute unavoidable side effect of making a game which that is huge, right? But then they also say, cool, here's this game that we've made, which is, really massive and pretty good anyway. Here's the keys to it. Do what you want with it. And so they've got this like huge modding community who will make new enemies, new quests. They'll sharpen up the graphics. They'll introduce whole new sort of mechanics to play. Like there's like a survival version of Skyrim and stuff like that. So when you're done with your 200-hour Skyrim quest, you can then go to the modding community and say, hey, throw another couple of hundred on top of that. Like, it's a fun fantasy game that you could just spend the rest of your life in if you wanted to, which I think a lot of people
you'll
have,
probably
which I'm on the way, Cool. So, on to our final pick. Our game of the decade.
Our game of the decade.
But not my game of the decade.
It's definitely in my top 2 or 3. I'm not surprised that the team picked it. It is, of course, Naughty Dog's The Last of Us, the post-apocalyptic zombie drama mini-series / video game.
Cormac McCarthy's The Road with zombies.
The closest thing to I think like an HBO quality 1-season show that just happens to be a video game instead. So
I did enjoy The Last of Us, but it wasn't really for me because I'm not too big on stealth games, and it's quite a stealthy game. So what really nails it for you then?
I just think how much I cared about the characters. Like there's obviously a decent amount of gunplay in it. It is a violent world, but it never feels like you're reveling in the power. The violence feels necessary and hard.
You're
and
on the back
painful.
foot, right?
Yeah,
the whole time.
Exactly. And the emphasis is always on where the characters are and their relationships with each other, rather than like, hey, here are some zombies to shoot, and your personality is like a secondary consideration. Everything is driven by the characters. Often flawed but relatable motivations. And I can't think of another video game that I've cried playing. I think this is probably the only one.
I think it has, still to this day for me, the strongest opening sort of 30 minutes.
Yeah, I've played the opening so many times because every time I play it I have to stop and be like, I'm going to come back to this another time, and then I have to replay it again.
And then it gets remastered, put back out on the PS4, and it holds up, right?
Yeah.
It's like, so, Last of Us originally a PlayStation 3 game, Naughty Dog put it back in the pixel pusher, make it all nice, prettify it up, and then it feels like a next gen game, right? Which I think speaks volumes again to how influential it was first time round, and how well the core idea remains that little while further down the line.
Yeah, I feel like one of the things that impresses me about The Last of Us most is its confidence to do things in a small way. It doesn't need to throw infinite enemies at you. It doesn't need to give you like a bazooka to make you feel like you're having an impact on the world. And just even things like the platforming element is so slight. It's often just like, there's a ladder somewhere here. You find it, you lean it against the wall, you do it. Like it's never hard to navigate the world, but all of the little decisions you make feel purposeful. That's something I really love about it.
And again, like the Uncharted games, so well cast, so well acted.
Oh god, the voice acting.
Like I think it really has that ability to draw you into. We've seen lots of post-apocalyptic games, right? It's one of the key go-tos, right? We've had the Fallout series, which I'm really a big fan of. Games like Mad Max, Mad Max being one of the pillars of post-apocalyptic cinema, right? But actually, in terms of making you feel connected to like the struggle of that world, like I think The Last of Us really nails it.
Yeah.
What do you think? What are you looking forward to about The Last of Us Part 2?
Being heartbroken all over again.
Nice.
I'm excited to sit with the characters again. I think it's going to be a grueling but worthwhile experience.
Cool. Okay, so that's our top 10 list. But there's a few notable omissions, things that didn't quite make the cut.
Yeah.
So I'm going to quickly run through my three.
Cool.
You run through your three. Diablo 3, another game that really turned itself around. I'm a big fan. Action RPG really nails that thing of like, I'm going to get one piece of loot and then the next piece of loot. And before I know it, I've been playing for like 4 hours when I went to sit down for like half an hour. Blizzard really turned it around. I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with Diablo 4. It was really great to eventually see Diablo 3 come to Nintendo Switch, which was like the perfect platform for it. Being able to sit on the toilet and kill demons has been my dream forever, and finally I can. I'm not very good at it, but you can't argue against how, again, influential it is. Dark Souls, that sense of like true challenge, brutal combat, brutal but fair, and that sense of world building where you're not being hammered with cutscenes or text. It's about taking the atmosphere of the world and letting this kind of dark fantasy, oppressive sort of situation kind of filter into the game itself, and the world as character. I think is really well done in Dark Souls series, and as well Bloodborne as well, which came after, and Sekiro. And finally for me, I'm going to go to 4. I'm going to go to 4.
Go ahead.
Fallout 3 was great. Did Fallout 3 make it into this decade?
No, it's not this decade. I think if it was this decade, I feel it probably would have been on this list.
Scrap that.
I would have voted for it hard.
Fallout games are great. Fallout 4 wasn't as good as it should have been, so we'll push that under the carpet. Push it under the carpet. What was great though, Mass Effect 2 and 3, as a trilogy. I don't know if there's been a better story told in any game. That just the concept of having your choices from one like 60, 70, 80 hour game feed into another game that's 60, 70, 80 hours, and then a final game 60, 70, 80 hours. That idea of like planting the seed of one choice in that first game and having that sort of butterfly ripple effect of here's the branching ways that this narrative can go. It must number into the thousands by the way it ends. So ambitious. First game, great setup for a franchise, with its setting and stuff, obviously slightly outside this decade, but then into the decade with Mass Effect 2, which really tightens up the gunplay, has this, honestly, I think those final sort of, how the things come together at the end is like just one of the greatest science fiction stories that can be told or has been told. The fact that you're in charge of it is great. The gunplay gets tighter, the visuals get great, perfectly voice acted, crazy aliens that look great. You got that whole sort of final like desperate mission, the Mass Effect 2, which was the one that just about misses it on our list. Mass Effect 3 obviously upset a lot of people because it had a very narrow ending, which wasn't quite as expansive as the rest of the series, but you know, it's still a great game. Mass Effect, please, someone bring that series back and do it justice after the failure that was Andromeda.
Yeah, I think we would like to see that.
Anything that you were missing?
Yeah, if I'm gonna do 3, the first one is a game that just not enough people have heard of. Yeah. Overland.
Right. Okay.
Which came out on PC first. It is on, I think it's on Apple Arcade and Switch now as well. It's a post-apocalyptic genre, which is a genre that I love. Procedurally generated levels, very tight, isometric, turn-based strategy. It is, I've used the word grueling a couple of times to describe the games I like, but it is painful. You get a little bit of a glimpse into the character and they die very often.
Right.
And it took me a lot of tries to get to the end of the game, and it doesn't quite reward you because that's the bleakness of the world you're in. But for that sort of tight focus, I think is one of the best things I've played in the last few years.
Cool.
Yeah, next, Portal 2. Just as making a follow-up to Portal that felt bigger and better and possibly funnier to one of the most iconic games of all time. Massively impressive. My final one is probably just going to be Halo Reach. Halo Reach. I'm reaching back a bit, but it was being Bungie's last Halo game before they went on to Destiny. And a game where you know what the ending is going to be, you know the planet is going to fall, but you invest in these characters anyway and then watch them just drop one by one. Yeah. I mean, Halo just has some of the best gunplay of any franchise out there.
And that's a wrap on our games of the decade. Was there anything we missed? So, I don't know, XCOM, Batman, Pillars of Eternity, Divinity, Original Sin,
Celeste. There are other games.
FTL, lots of games. Let us know if there's anything you'd like to hear more about, and give us your alternative top 10 games of the decade. Thanks for watching. Give us a subscribe. Give us a subscribe. Give us a subscribe, a like, and keep an eye out for TechRadar's future video game videos.
Cool. Thanks for watching.